If I was starting public domain publishing from scratch today, I would not just look for an old book. That sounds important. That is not enough. Today, I'm looking at The Bridge of San Luis Rey by Thornton Wilder, and I'm asking one very specific question. Would I publish this as my first public domain book? Now, this one looks tempting. It was published in 1927. It won the Pulitzer Prize. It has a strong title. It has a dramatic opening idea. A bridge collapses in Peru. 5 people die. And a monk starts asking why those 5 people were on that bridge at that exact moment. That is a proper hook. It has death. It has mystery. It has fate. It has that old literary prestige around it. So at first glance, this looks like the kind of public domain book a beginner might get excited about. But that is exactly why I want to look at it, because sometimes the most dangerous books are the ones that look safe too early. So let us break this one down properly. Would I publish this? The Bridge of San Luis Rey by Thornton Wilder. Let us see if this is actually a smart first book. The first thing I would look at here is the buying hook. Because this book has one of those simple ideas that is easy to explain. A bridge breaks, 5 people fall to their deaths, and someone tries to find out whether it was an accident, fate, or something else. That is strong. You do not need 20 minutes to explain what the book is about. The idea is already there, and that matters because with public domain publishing, the buyer has to understand the book quickly. If the concept is messy, weak, or boring, everything else gets harder. This one does not have that problem. The title sounds serious, the story has weight, and the central question is the sort of thing people still understand today. Why did this happen? Why those people? Was it random, or was there meaning behind it? That gives the book a real hook. So from a concept point of view, I like it. This is not a dead-looking old book. This is a book with a clear reason someone might stop and pay attention. Now, the next thing I'll check is proof of importance. Because not every good sounding old book actually has weight behind it. This one does. The Bridge of San Luis Rey won the Pulitzer Prize. It has been read for decades. It has been adapted, and it has that classic literature feel without being massive and intimidating. That matters because some public domain books are interesting, but hard to package. They are too obscure, too long, too dull, or too difficult to explain. This one is different. It is short, it has prestige, it has a clean premise, and it sits in that space between literary fiction, historical fiction, religion, fate, tragedy, and philosophy. So there are a few ways you could think about positioning it. Not by making wild claims, just by understanding what the book already is. A famous old novel about death, meaning love, and whether life is random. That is not a bad starting point. So far, I would still be interested. But this is where beginners need to be careful because a book can look good on the surface and still fail the one check that actually matters. Now, I would normally look for demand signals, and this is where this book gets a bit more interesting. In Project Gutenberg, The Bridge of San Luis Rey does not show huge download numbers for it. So I would not pretend the free download signal is amazing. It is not. But that is not the only kind of demand signal. With this book, I would look at a different kind of clue. Has the book stayed known? Has it stayed in print? Do readers still talk about it? Does the title still carry weight? And with The Bridge of San Luis Rey, the answer is yes. This is not some random forgotten book sitting in a dusty corner. It is a Pulitzer-winning American novel with a premise people can still understand in one sentence. That is useful. Not every good public domain test needs the same evidence. Sometimes the signal is search demand, sometimes it is genre demand, sometimes it is cultural recognition, and sometimes it is a book that has stayed alive because the idea is still strong. So at this stage, I would not call it a guaranteed winner, but I would still keep going because the book has enough signs to deserve a proper check. Now comes the part that changes everything. The legal check for The Bridge of San Luis Rey. And this is where this book goes from interesting to dangerous. In the United States, the situation looks good. The book was published in 1927. So in the US, the original text is public domain. A beginner sees that and thinks, great, done. But that is not enough, because Amazon is not just one little country box. You have to think about the territories Amazon makes available and how those territory rules connect together. And this is where Canada becomes the problem, because Thornton Wilder died in 1975. Canada now uses life of the author plus 70 years. That means this book is not safely public domain in Canada yet. And if Canada is blocked, then under the way we treat Amazon's US and Canada rule, I am not treating the US as available either. That is the trap. The book can be public domain in America and still not be a clean Amazon first project. That is the sort of detail beginners miss, and it can change the whole decision and the future of their business. Now, this is where the product angle almost becomes frustrating for the Bridge of San Luis Rey, because if the rights were clean for the main markets, this could be a very interesting addition. I could see a simple annotated version working here, not heavy academic notes, just useful notes that help the reader understand the setting, the religious ideas, the historical feeling, and why the book mattered. I could also see a clean illustrated edition working here. For example, the bridge, the fall, the old Peru setting, the 5 lives leading to one moment. There is something visual there. This is not a book where I would need to invent the angle from nothing. The angle is already sitting inside the story. But that is the point. A good product idea does not save a bad territory check. And this is why I like using this book as an example, because everything can look promising. The hook can be strong. The title can be strong. The addition idea can be strong, and then one legal detail can still knock it out. That is not failure. That is the system working. You find the problem before you waste time building the book. So would I publish The Bridge of San Luis Rey by Thornton Wilder as my first public domain book if I was starting again? My verdict is no. Not as my first book. And the reason is not because the book is no good. The book is interesting. The hook is strong. The title has weight. The special edition angle makes sense. But the Canada problem changes the decision. If I cannot safely treat the US as available because of the US-Canada issue, then I am losing the market I least want to lose on a first project. And I do not need that problem at the start. There are too many other public domain books where the legal path is cleaner. So this one goes in the interesting but not first pile. That is the lesson here. A book can pass the hook check, it can pass the prestige check, it can pass the product angle check, and still fail the publishing decision. So my verdict is no, not as a first book, not because the book is weak, but because the territory risk is too important.